Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to our Messages for Humanity with myself, Mich Carpenter, and our beautiful, beloved Sue Tobin. Happy 2026, Sue.
Thank you so much. Yes. Touche. The same to you
Touche.
too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know we're already
Hopefully.
in the middle of January and we are just heading into a phenomenal, phenomenal year. It's the year of the fire horse, according to the Chinese zodiac. So just think of fire as cleansing, hot, which I think you need some of the hotness in the UK.
We need a lot
And
of fire. Not that fire, but we do need
yeah,
fire.
and
We
horse
do.
energy, which Sue, you used to ride horses, didn't you, when you were younger?
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that the Ascended Masters Council of Eight mentioned about the beauty in horses
Ah,
and the connection to them and how they like to run and run and run to get their freedom. And you feel that when I used to ride them, not my own horse, but I used to ride, help in the stables, and then have a free ride about once or twice a year. And we go out early in the morning and go down onto the beach, and about six of us would race across the beach, but only because we had no choice. The horses would be cantering on the spot as they're coming onto the beach, you know. Oh, so excited.
it must be
Uh,
exhilarating, hey? Sure.
yes, because you get to a point that they're galloping so fast, you know, and they love that breeze against them. It's the sea breeze, and you actually feel you can't feel their legs underneath anymore. They go
Wow.
so fast.
Hmm.
So it's almost like a present time. You're sitting there as they're galloping, and they just love it. They just
Oh,
love it. They love the sea.
well, absolutely. It's if you think of wild horses, and I remember when my daughter used to ride horses, and Cade, my son, was still little at the time, and the farm we went to, the owner always used to say to me, Mesh, just be watch him because if he goes in between the horses, which he used to love doing, if one of them decides that they're gonna buck or set themselves free, they just
Mm,
run with like no one's watching. And
yes.
which kind of loosed me back into what this year is about. It is about freedom. It's about deeply diving into our compassion, I believe. And this is what we wanted to talk about this morning and share in our observations of life. So let's talk about compassion and what it's meant for you on your journey.
Everything. That's all I can say. Everything from when I first recognized it, I think, excuse me, recognized it from when I was very young, having my dear mother and her psychotic episodes. Um, it comes from part of the awareness. And sometimes people, quite understandably, get confused with kindness and compassion. And there is a difference. You know, compassion, as I said, comes from the awareness. So it's deep within of who we are. Whereas kindness is, it's the acting part. Compassion doesn't act, doesn't have an act. It's just in the awareness. It just is and happens. So it's instant. Whereas kindness is the acting part. So with the acting, there might be intentions, different intentions. Um, Perhaps I should be kind to this person today. Perhaps this person needs this kindness. So it can come from the needs, or it can come whether it's for that person or the person who's giving the kindness. So sometimes um, there is an attachment to the kindness, whereas compassion arises. from within.
I
So
love that.
it's
Wow.
different.
I'd never ever thought of what you've just shared of kindness, but that makes so much sense. Because would you say that there could be manipulation in being kind?
There could be unintentionally.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if we don't have the awareness, it can come out as intentionally or unintentionally. So you might want to be kind, but is that a conditioning you've built in yourself from a situation? Um, Maybe from your parents, maybe from your mother, maybe not. But it could be, yes, let's do this. Let's give that to charity. Let's give that to that person or this to another person. Um, you know, it'd be good for our karma. It would be good for, it will look good. So sometimes it may not be for the right reasons or wrong reasons. Um, or it may be. There isn't a maybe with compassion. There's no right or wrong conditions or conditionings because compassion is the awareness. It is and it is. It's in the present time. So there's no need for compassion, no wants. It's just coming from deep within of helping, coming with empathy and a deep, deep understanding. Do you see? It's very different to kindness.
I do, but I don't, because we have to go into everything. Like, my head's kind of going, okay, yep, okay, yeah, okay. And then I'm thinking about what you spoke about, like with regards to charities, because it's the one thing that I've always felt that it's important to give back. Yet I realize that there's been an ego that's driving it because I just like, oh, I just want to get rid of this stuff. It's easier to just drop it off a charity. So that's actually not compassionate. I'm I'm not, for me, and correct me if I'm hearing it differently or thinking about it differently, but when I'm literally packing up stuff to send to charity or give to charity, it's giving it in a thank you very much. Like I'm very grateful for what I have had, let's say clothes, and I'm dropping it off for the next person to receive it in whichever way they're gonna find it, I suppose. Is that kind of on the same vibration or the with what you're explaining?
Let me ask you, has that kindness got an edge to it?
I would say no over the years. Initially, and where I'm slowing down is in South Africa, we used to have a charity, just a charity where I would go and collect toys because we used to buy, buy goods from storage units. And I would have to really say to people, it was really special because people would, I mean, we really have a lot in life. I mean, honestly, a lot of us, I think, have a lot. And I would go and collect toys, but then people would give toys with a Barbie doll with a broken leg and a broken head. And I'm like, okay, these
Oh,
are going to underprivileged children.
yes,
But sorry,
yes.
what's so that was my edge, I'm like, sorry, what was your thought? Would you want your child to receive? That's where I would want to make a statement, and I'll
Mm,
put out on a message on Facebook saying, please don't give me your jeans that have got holes in them. Just because it's
mm.
going to homeless people, what makes you think that it's okay to give homeless people jeans with holes in them? Like, do you see what I'm saying? So that's my edge. But it's kind of
So,
like,
yes, so maybe if you're coming from compassion, you might give your best clothes to the ones who don't have anything, the ones you cherish.
absolutely, yes. And that's part of where I I think that's where my empathy would I would lean into it and call upon, because yes, people that we were collecting from or gifting, they were gifting us their stuff, their toys, thought they were doing good, but it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, well, why would you want to give broken stuff or stuff with holes in, just because people it just didn't make sense to me. But in
Mm.
their world, I can imagine they felt like they were doing good. They were giving something. They were giving, they perhaps felt like they were being compassionate or being kind. I would say
Maybe,
more kind than compassion in the way that you've described it.
yeah, because with kindness, I feel there is an edge to it. There is um, a final, a final edge of this is what I'm doing today. Tomorrow I may not be so kind. Maybe the next day I am kind. Maybe the next day I am not kind. So with compassion, that never ever changes.
Got you. So it's, I love
Ever.
what, okay. So I love what you shared. Well, why wouldn't we give our best clothes to the homeless so that, I was just going to say, so that they can feel special, but that's ego. That's being kind, isn't it? It's like, well, just give it wholeheartedly. There's that statement, give it wholeheartedly.
And what happens when you give your most cherished item to someone? What are you actually doing? You know, what are you letting go of?
That's a great question. I can only lean into examples of, if I have crystals, which I do in my therapy room,
Yes.
and I have a, I'm not going to say it's an addiction because I've realized that it became an addiction to pick up heart stones wherever I was. Oh, let's look for the heart stones. And I was like, okay, Michelle, you need to like just give us a bit of a break. But sometimes I'm in a session and I get this very strong message, gift that to that person. It could be a book, it could be a, and I was taught this many years ago, it's not meant to be yours anymore. So give it in the fullness of what you've been shown to gift it.
Mm.
And that for me feels like it's being in the holding of compassion. And even when, because once it's gone, it's gone. I'm not looking for it. It doesn't really, I don't miss it.
Which means there's no attachment.
Yes. Yet, and I want to lean back into what you had said earlier on. And for those of you who are meeting Sue, um, Sue has a phenomenal journey. We have other messages for humanity. Please go back, circle back into those where we discuss things like this, where Sue has an incredible journey and knows compassion well. Because what I was thinking about when you spoke about your beautiful mom, that moment that you were running outside
Mm.
and you turned around and your dog was underneath the bush, I think, or the tail, no,
Yeah.
it was
Shaking.
shaking.
Mm.
How, I mean, Sue, the profoundness of your soul and your wisdom started at such a young age.
Mm.
How did you know in that moment to just turn around and see her, if I can remember, with the wooden pin,
Yeah,
wooden?
she's been making pastries, so she had a tantrum. She was psychotic, she couldn't help it, and she wasn't diagnosed, so she wasn't on medication. And her anxiety drove her to this level of any reaction, anything out of the ordinary, something being knocked over, anything that could alert her, she would basically go ballistic. I mean, she would just lose it. And I can't. I'm trying to remember. It's either there were so many different occasions. Either I fell off my bike and ripped my trousers, which I was then terrified, um, or it was another time when I knocked over a drink, and that would really set her off. So the routine was to run out in the garden with my dog, who was very protective, a sheepdog, and we both run under the bushes, hiding from her. Um, but this time I didn't, and she came after me um, with this rolling pin, ready to clout me or whatever she was going to do. Um, and as I came to the gate, I realized it had been bolted, padlocked, so I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out from this gate. And my dog was looking under the bushes, thinking, what are you doing? You're supposed to be with me here, hiding. She see you. It's just like he was kind of giving these messages across, thinking, come over, you shouldn't be there. It was quite funny, but although it wasn't at the time, because I was only 8 and I was really scared. So I just turned round. And it's almost like a child in denial that anything is going to happen, but it wasn't. It was something else that happened, where I saw a different vision of her. I could see her raging towards me with the rolling pin in her hand and her arm up. And I just looked at her, and it was almost like you can see through a person that she is terrified. She has this anxiety. It's not her. So there was like, I suppose, an awakening of, I can see who she is. I can see the other side where she's caught up with her anxieties, but these are seconds. And the other side, this is not her.
Mm.
She's true love. She's not like this, really. She doesn't want to be like this. And I just waited in that present time. And for some reason, for the first time, she just fizzled out as she came to me and swore, came to a stop, and turned. She must mumble something or other. It might be wait until your father comes home, but he was a gentle soul, so I can't remember that bit. But I know she mumbled something, and I remember that she was swearing. And she turned round and went back into the kitchen. And then the dog looked at me and I looked at her, and it was like he really couldn't understand. He was shaking like a leaf under the bushes. Um, and then we went back inside and it all calmed down. But it was just that moment. That's all it takes in the awareness. That's all it takes, where you can have an understanding and empathy for a person when you know who they are.
Yes, yet that's such an important knowing. Because this morning I was thinking, we're all equal too,
Mm,
all of us,
mm,
no matter what. And I feel like that's part of the knowing, is when you know who they are. Because in that moment, like you said, with your mom turning around, you saw true love. You saw who she truly is, not
mm.
what she had become.
That's right.
So, how do we as humans lean into that compassion? Again, I just feel like, I know when I read your book, I was in awe of receiving that as at such a young age. And did you ever have PTSD from growing up in that way?
Um, I don't think I did. I think my sisters did. Because we were not getting much sleep either. She'd walk in her nightmares throughout the night, and we didn't know when. and we just wait for her to come into our room. And she was still dreaming. She was in a nightmare, but she was in the nightmare walking. So it's a really strange thing to come across. So she'd wake up from her sleep and then she'd walk through the landing. We used to listen for those footsteps across the creaking boards. I'm trying to think, she gone into my sister's room or she come into mine and my other sister's. And when she used to come in, she'd be looking for something to kill. She was so terrified. She was so terrified.
Wow.
And sometimes she'd look at you straight in the eyes, very, very close. And you had to freeze like a rabbit in headlights
Mm,
and wait to see if those dark brown eyes would look somewhere else before going somewhere else.
mm.
And if we moved, she would attack.
Sure.
And my father used to then wake up and then come to the normal routine and say, "Come on, Bet, come back to bed." And sometimes she'd thump him and fight him, and she's still dreaming. She wasn't awake.
Mm.
And I heard many, many, many years later that someone went to court because he actually killed his wife when he had the same symptoms. He killed her in bed,
Gosh.
and he dearly, dearly loved her.
Mm.
So she was dangerous, really.
Yeah,
And my two sisters, yes, had a lot of anger,
sure.
blaming my father, saying, "Why didn't you do something? Why didn't you get some help?" But it was very cruel in those days, and I believe they still use it when the electric shocks. And there's absolutely no
Yes.
way he would
Oh,
allow that because
wow.
he loved her.
Wow. Like you said, what a special soul to have to, or to choose to walk that journey with her.
Yes, and he knew in another way who she was, that she wasn't that person when she was younger.
Yeah.
So, it was an absolute blessing, even though we didn't sleep much. Once she'd gone, we knew that that was over and that would be fine. We could sleep. But we didn't know when throughout the night that would happen. And it'd
Gosh.
be about 2 to 4 times a week, depending, never knowing when.
So, what do you think the genetics are if you were, I want to say, born different? Because for you to share these stories, and I've read about them, I've heard you speak of them, and every time I hang on your words, where there's still a part of me that goes, wow, it almost feels like impossible, but yet clearly it has been possible because you're sitting here right now.
Mm.
So how is it, or could you lead? Because the reason why I'm questioning this is, and we'll come back to compassion, is there's a lot of mental health issues nowadays, a lot,
A lot, yeah.
and there's a lot of schizophrenia, there's a lot of bipolar, and it's just a fascinating. For me, I don't know a lot about it, but there's a lot of people lately that I've connected with that have landed up in hospitals from having schizophrenia or bipolar, or in the psychiatric hospitals, from what they've explained, are not the easiest places to be either.
No, yeah, it's difficult. And I'm not an expert on this. We did have a bipolar patient in the jungle where there was no medication. And I think I spoke about it before on a podcast where she attacked the youngest child who was 2 and tried to strangle him. And she was in her 20s, early 20s. Um, and the other street people got her off, I would imagine quite violently. Um, but who knows? I didn't see it at the time. And then I was told about it, and then the next minute I saw her about half an hour later walking along. Oh, she was coming down the hill in the jungle, and she was clutching her teddy, and she was singing at the top of her voice, happy as Larry.
Uh,
So I'd seen to the little boy, I could see all the marks around his neck. Um, but once I, you know, spoke to him and, with his mother as well, his mother was with him. He was okay. But although he was very, very upset. So I went to her and I went to see if she was okay. Of course, she was really happy in that moment holding her teddy. So it's a very difficult one, isn't it, for people to be in this situation. But it's being able to see through these circumstances, these conditions, and therefore the baby was really important, but she was also very important to me because you're looking inside of that person, you're looking through that person. And going back to genetics, I don't know. I think that it's all because I feel we choose who we want to learn from,
mm,
perhaps with our parents,
mm,
and where we're going to have the greatest learnings, perhaps.
mm.
But yes, my mother was a blessing, an absolute blessing.
So, what's the difference between being in compassion? No, I'll ask this differently. With what's how do you know that you're not I'm not saying you, but plural,
Yeah.
not disassociating? Because you and I were discussing this the other day, where I've had moments where I've gone into freeze, and I know I've had other moments where I've gone into fight, and I know I've had other moments where I've gone into just completely shaking. So, which is also perhaps a way of freezing, but it feels like a part of me when I'm in that space of trauma that I disassociate. Because in that moment, would you say that that's the not knowing that I'm stepping out of the pause? Because I'll give you an example. I was walking up the road one evening, and for those of you who know my story about the house across the road, we're now on great terms. But the one night I was walking, and it was dark, and he was walking his little dog, the older gentleman, and he pulled it like this. And I just slipped back into our driveway because I and then I came back and I stood inside the kitchen, and I thought, how come I didn't say anything? Like it's an animal. How come I didn't say anything? Normally I would shout at somebody. So I don't know what happened in that moment. It was just, did I go there? Don't I go there? I didn't see him in compassion at all. I just saw him as a cruel person hurting a dog. But I was holding on to something. I just couldn't bring myself. And then for a few weeks after that, I felt awful because I couldn't give that dog a voice.
I see, because you couldn't give the dog a voice.
Yeah.
Sometimes dogs have their own karma too, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
sometimes we can't interfere with that, or if it's not the right time, or it's not the right place. But what created that? Was that fear from you? Was that fear from the man as well? Was it all to do with fear?
Because it wasn't compassionate and loving, like he wasn't towards the dog. But I think this is where I wonder, like, what happens in that moment? Because I had I could have, if I go back in my head, and I'm just giving you guys an example because I think so many times these things happen for us.
Mm,
Actually, every
mm,
time they happen for us.
yeah,
But I know just with my own clients, that there's how do we how do we learn? Is it through meditation to come into that pause? Because yes, I was that story was playing over, and I was like, oh, and then I had a big cry, and then I just sat and connected with the dog and apologized to the dog energetically because I suppose a part of me is like, well, what difference would it have made? Because for how long has he been, it was just a definite yank and he, shouted at the dog, and I'm like, the dog's just walking. But I
Mm,
was more in the space of bringing myself down because, yes, there was fear there. There's no doubt.
mm.
Now that you've
And
said that.
yeah, and it's difficult because sometimes we have to watch the suffering. We really do have to watch the suffering. Um, you might see it abroad somewhere. I've seen it when donkeys have been beaten, because they're not walking fast enough or they're not carrying the load fast enough. They're not catching up, or there's a lot of cruelty to animals.
And how do you deal with that, Sue? How do you, like in those moments when you see it?
Exactly in that moment, what it's going into that pause in that present time. And sometimes these situations are presented to us to learn from. If I'd challenged that person with those sticks for the donkey, it would have caused him to be in a lot more anger. He would have been angry with me, and then he'd take it out a lot more on the animal, no doubt. So sometimes, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but sometimes we have to stand back and look at the suffering
Mm,
because we could make it worse. So watching the suffering is one of the greatest learnings.
sure. Wow.
It's a hard world here.
Yes, and it brings me back to compassion because over time, I felt more compassion for the gentleman. And
Why is he doing that? In fear, lack of control, all sorts of reasons perhaps,
yeah,
where he is. And yes, it is awful. Sometimes we take punishment out on animals,
yeah,
in different ways. And that's our anger, our fear, which arises from conditionings.
yeah. Sorry.
So it's looking at these conditionings and learning about the awareness, the present time. And yes, from meditation, this is a way of learning. This is a way of learning about the awareness.
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
brings me back to, life being a simulation and what reality are we creating?
Correct. Yes, that's right.
Mm,
And we have to look at what reality we are creating in this present time. Then, as the compassion arises and the awareness, wisdom will come in and help us to make that decision. Whereas if we go with the attachments, conditionings, our fears, it's got much greater chance of maybe not doing the right actions.
mm,
So it's standing back, like watching the mother and seeing both sides of the coin, both
mm,
sides of that person.
mm.
Because most of us are full of conditionings.
And from that day with your mother, when you turned around, did it change things for you? Did you start to see her in that way mostly or all the time?
Correct, yes. It didn't change her actions.
Wow. Yeah.
She still remained the same in different ways. Um, but yeah, I had an understanding. And then you learn about animals and where they're coming from and their understanding and their wisdom. Horses have a lot of wisdom. Dogs, cats are very
Mhm.
spiritual.
Mm.
Um, But there's no edge, you see, to compassion. There's no final edge. There's no limitations of today I'm going to be compassionate, maybe not tomorrow. Once you are aware, you will always have compassion. You
Mm.
cannot turn this back. You cannot switch it off. It's there, always, and always has been. I haven't grasped it from anywhere, I haven't taken it from anywhere. It's inside all of us, all the time, because that's who we are.
I
And if we
love.
could look at one another when we meet that person, whoever they are, and it's almost like you'd watch them going like this and they're very angry and blah, blah, blah. And then you'd know what to say because you can see that they've lost control, that they're in fear, that they're angry.
Mm.
So a knowing comes out from compassion,
Mm.
not from kindness.
Mm. Imagine if they
Interesting.
taught this in schools.
Well, this is what I'd love. This is why we should learn meditation from a young age. I
Yeah,
think that once we start doing this, can you imagine there'd be far less bullying.
yeah,
There'd be far, the need wouldn't be there, even though you might be getting it from home or something like I was getting it. You would see, you would understand,
yeah.
and then we'd live in a better world.
We would.
So
Yeah.
it, it's a great learning. And for one example of compassion, if I go back to the monastery where I was a nun and the only nun in this monastery training, um, I had two malas that I used to do a practice with every day. But my room was a storeroom where I was living, and the abbot cleared out the storeroom for me to live in there. So I lived with the mice and a kimono dragon next door, who I called Alice, and used to do my practices very early in the morning. We had to go to the puja at 3:30 in the morning, so I was out at about 3:10. But my door was never locked, and for some reason, both malas were cut in three places. So when I picked them up, all the beads fell on the floor.
Mm.
And you think, well, maybe the mice were having a munch on it or whatever. But there were two separate days, and it was really unusual. So I spoke to the abbot, the long pole, and saying, look, we can't accuse of anybody. We don't know what's happened. It could be the mice. It could be deterioration of the string in the malas. But there were definite cuts. There was no kind of string areas to the inside of the rope inside. So I said, okay, that's fine. I can do without. Um, and the abbot never condemned anyone, never made a judgment, but he'd act. And I felt that the rumour went around very quickly in the monastery about Palitar's malas being cut. And one day, coming out very early from the temple, it was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was on my way back into my room, and two young monks, probably in their 20s, were coming towards me. Now, you're not allowed at that time for me to look at the monks, have that eye contact. It's to look down, and none would look down and walk past and just say, you know, Swadika or good morning or whatever. And as I was looking down, the monks, as they were approaching me, said, Palita, put your hands together, put them out, your palms, put them out. And well, I can't look at them, so I just put my hands out like that. And as they walked past, they dropped two plastic malas, the whole string of 108 beads,
Mm.
into the palms of my hand and kept walking. And I just looked back at them and they looked back and we just smiled and
Wow.
nodded. That is compassion.
Mm. Mm. That's beautiful. Wow.
So,
But
yes,
you didn't react. You spoke about it, and then the energy started to shift
yes,
because it was spoken of, spoken about, but no finger pointing because you would never know the truth. And I think that's
that's right.
probably half of the issues that we have as humanity is that we make assumptions all the time, not truly knowing the real truth of the matter. And then, even if we did know the real truth of the matter, does it actually matter?
No, because we had ideas. We knew some people were going in my room. Um, they were seen coming out. Um, we can't assume. We can't
Yeah,
assume.
yeah,
It's not the right way of going. And it can make you feel stupid sometimes. If you said, oh, yes, it's that person, and that person had nothing to do with it,
yeah,
and was found innocent, you
yeah,
can look really, really stupid sometimes.
yeah.
So it really isn't a good way of dealing with life. And what does it matter?
Mm,
In this reality of um, duality,
mm,
what does it matter? We're in a world we believe in instead of being in consciousness, awareness, clarity. You don't need belief. You know
mm,
in the pause,
mm,
in the awareness. There's a knowing of wisdom.
mm.
And it's so simple, but difficult in the way of, those Rubik cubes where you kept hours and hours of working with this cube, and then it happens.
Yeah.
You make it. You just turn the dial, like the radio, turn the dial.
Mm, mm,
That's all it is. It's moving that one stage up or
mm.
down or sideways. It's just moving those connections, energies to another level.
Yeah.
And then once you know, there's no turning back. It's almost like in duality, you're dancing the dance. You are not the actor on the stage anymore when you're in non duality, you are the stage. So you're observing, you're part of it, but you're not the actor. So there's ways of us to see with different eyes. So we can be in the non duality and be part of the duality because we're here to learn. And in duality, you have ego. So the best way I think to deal with ego is to actually use it when it's necessary. So it's almost like it travels alongside of you and says, oh, yeah, I need you now. I need you to plan. I need you to do this for me. We need to go here. We do need ego. Why we're in duality. But it's being able to see with different eyes.
Mhm.
So there's a knowing, there's an awareness, but there's roles we are playing in this duality we feel is real. It's a learning process. It's a process we agreed to go into thinking, I'd love to go into that world. It's beautiful. It's got forests and it's got rivers and but the interesting part is the river. We can be part of the river. We can be going into the ocean. We could be the wave in the ocean or the drop in the ocean. But are we not the ocean? The waves that are unpredictable, going different ways. But we're still part of the ocean. So it's seeing non-duality and duality.
It's such it's such a simplicity, and it's so simple. And I think it can make our lives simple when we
Well, not even make, just is.
just is. Got you. Yeah, yeah. Fascinating.
So do you see the difference between compassion and kindness? I hope. It's very
Yes,
different.
it is
They're
very
coming from
different. And thank you
two
for
different places.
bringing it to our attention and our awareness. Because, even I just realized, even when I'm saying to my kids, be kind, and then I'll remind them, be kind to yourself.
That's very important.
Yeah. But, it's coming with who knows how they're perceiving it.
That's right. Where does kindness come in? Oh, I'll go and buy
Yes.
some sweets then.
Yes,
Spend all my
exactly.
money. I don't need
Mom
that for the
said be
bus.
kind. Yeah,
I don't need that
exactly.
for the bus. You said be kind. I don't want to go on
Mm-hmm.
a bus. I'll just
Yeah.
spend all my money on sweets.
Yeah. But mom, you said be kind, so I
Yes.
was.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
it's probably perhaps better, perhaps not, for children to know what love is. As you're saying, from schools, they could teach it, in meditation. And I really don't think we'll have all the bullying that the poor old other children are dealing with, and the persons who are the young ones who are being bullied.
Mm,
They're frightened,
mm,
but throughout their life, that won't change.
mm,
They'll be in work situations, they'll be everywhere.
mm,
They'll be in retreats.
mm. True.
You see, so it's just helping us with our sufferings and seeing through it
Yeah.
and helping others. Because once we can see through it, we can help others understand
Mm.
if they wanted to. But you've got to want to
Well,
move forward.
I was going to ask you because yes, there's definitely, and I feel like our spirit teams will bring the different courses, the different journeys, it will take us on different courses along the way. And everything is a moment in time, even because my head was thinking, actually, I've said course, but we go on different courses, we go on different roads, yet at the same time, we do, there's so many modalities, different courses that we can connect into or learn from. And some people choose to stay on that course of this is what I'm going to do in my life, this is what
Yeah,
defines what I do. And then other people, choose to go on a different course. I know some therapists that study and learn and study and learn, and they just love learning every kind of different modality. And at one time I thought, wow, I mean, they're genius. These are people who just can retain information. One of them is a very good friend of mine, and it blows me away as to how it's like literally just opening up this knowing. It's just there. And I always say she's my little encyclopedia if I need to know something about the body or because she's just like, oh, okay, yep, well, here it is. And I'm like, wow.
yeah,
Yet it's never right or wrong. It's their journey. I could project and say, well, why don't they just stay in their knowing? Well, that's what they're wanting in life. And I think that's quite a definite differentiation, is that for me, and my learning is, one of my learnings is that everything is happening for me and it comes to me in divine timing. Eckhart Tolle, I think, talks about this in Being in the Now.
Yes.
And Wayne
Lovely
Dyer, the late Wayne Dyer, yeah. And I didn't understand it for such a long time. Doesn't mean we don't have to be in the doing, because, or not, I think I'm going to
definition.
change my words, because we're still in the doing. You and I are doing here right now.
We got to work, we got to play, we got to be in duality, do the normal things. We have emotions.
Yes,
We all have emotions. Doesn't
yes.
mean you don't have emotions and you shut down from these emotions.
Great.
No,
That's what I was kind
stop.
of leaning into earlier on, because there's still that unraveling that happens, the letting go. So is where we have these, we are energy, but I feel like if we're here to be in the human experience of our learnings, and the emotions can arise, but it's also the knowing of the emotions, like allowing them, okay, but not projecting them, acknowledging
That's,
them.
yeah, that's it. That and having an understanding because you have to have your emotions to understand other people as well, to
Yeah,
understand where they are,
yeah,
to
true.
to know how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And this is all part of the present time, I feel, or in the awareness, even if the awareness is temporary, as the pauses are. It's the accumulation of the awareness, the accumulation of the pause that can bring you into the present time. But having those emotions and feeling them, it's just not going into denial. It's feeling them and feeling what that person is going through. So you have empathy, not sympathy.
Mm, mm,
It's it's not being the actor. It's actually feeling in the present time that emotion.
mm,
You don't stop emotions. I feel when there's an awareness, you've got to have that understanding where that person is coming from. Otherwise, the ego shoots through with, "Oh yes, I know where you are. Yeah, it happened to me too. I know exactly where you are." You may not.
yes, no, because no two stories are the same. No two journeys are the same,
No.
ever. Um, that's a very validated point that you, and referencing of that is so important, because I think so many people, I used to be able to do this myself, and then I caught myself, because I think it keeps us in the victim mode of like, yep, I know exactly what you've gone through. None of us can ever relate to what anybody else has gone through, because it's a specific journey that they're walking. It's a specific journey that they've, like, when you talk about your mom, I have such empathy for you as a young girl, and here you are, sharing your teachings, your knowledge, your knowings.
Yeah, but there's also a side of, how we feel we know the other person, what they're going through, and yes, it happened to me too, so I know exactly what's going on. But we are also looking for that, aren't we? From our traumas. We're looking for that, yeah, you know exactly what it's like. Um, which is difficult because you may not. You may
Mm,
not know what this is like, but we're searching for that too because we're looking for love.
mm,
We're looking for that being embraced and people knowing what you've been through. And this is not a judgment. We are basically looking for love,
mm,
but we've already got it. In the compassion, in the awareness, the love is there too.
mm,
A very different, but same
Mm.
type of love. So again, it's turning the coin the other side of knowing what love is,
Mm.
which is completely different to what we think it is in duality.
Mm.
So it's an interesting world, and it's a wonderful world with its traumas, with its sufferings, from which we can learn from.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So very true.
So it makes life easier,
Mm.
and our old self, as I've spoken to you before, our old self in duality has to die. That's what needs to happen in the end.
Yeah.
And I mean not die as in death, but
Yeah.
it's another side of death of not being that person anymore.
Yeah. Because it's so easy to identify with that older person. It's so easy to identify with, and that's where we,
Exactly.
it is, would you say that's where we elevate our consciousness? That's where we elevate into, there's so many, I think, what's the guy's name? Thomas, I can't, but he developed a graph of the different levels and states of consciousness.
Oh,
And I can't think of his name, his full name right now, but there's the different colors are related to it. So when you're in frustration, anger,
so you're not talking about the Maslow theory where our basic needs we need, and then we gradually grow into the top of, we don't need these things at all. That's the Maslow theory. It's different. It's a
I
different
think
way.
similar but different. Yeah, he just talks
Yeah,
about by the time we get to being and enlightenment, like he uses
yeah,
it as a pyramid, that's where the purple colors and the blue and all those
that's right.
beautiful
Yeah,
colors
yeah,
that
that's
are
very similar.
got you. And but it's the frustration, the anger is what pulls us down because it truly does too. It
Because
pulls
we're in
us
fear.
down.
Yeah, we're in
Yeah.
fear. We react, and
Yes.
so it's learning not to react. So yes, it's an interesting world, and yes, there's a lot of sufferings. There are lots of sufferings going on, but we can deal with this, move out from it, and seeing it from two different ways rather than being just in the duality. Because it's very soul destroying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, it's letting go of that personality in the duality. So that's where it needs to die, that personality, as the awareness comes in and embraces us.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like it would be so wonderful for you to perhaps even just take us through a meditation for 5 minutes because it really is a practice if you're okay with this.
Yes,
And
that's
for
fine.
those of you who are new to meditation, there's nothing to fear. For those of you who are, it really is life changing. It really and truly is. And even if we just did a few minutes, Sue, would that be okay with you?
Yes, of course. And it's it's not you can't or unable to do it. There isn't such a thing.
Mm,
It's just practice. It's
true.
just practice. And then one day, um, because what we basically want to do, but not try to do, is let the thoughts come in. But in between those thoughts is a gap. It's about like the sky and the clouds. And the clouds are passing by, sometimes quite quickly, sometimes slowly as we get caught up in the thought. We go on a story. So please don't give yourself a hard time. Oh, being caught up with those thoughts and you're not supposed to have thoughts. No, you are supposed to have thoughts. That's normal for a human being. But it's as you move on, you will realize there are gaps in between the thoughts, and you're there in the awareness. You're in the sky and you're not the cloud anymore. So when this happens, you realize it when you come out from meditation, because you wouldn't realize this in the gap because you're in the awareness. You're just there at that moment as is. So no one's to get or feel they need to compare with others. And we're all the same. We'll all go through different experiences, and that's all okay. We're just looking for that gap, but not trying. It's actually being in the gap, not going anywhere. And then you come out and you might think, oh, that meditation was quite good actually, because I didn't go with the thoughts on my stories so much. So let's be compassionate to one another, to ourselves. We don't have to look for kindness. We don't have to look for judgments. It's just being as it is. And, you can talk for a long time about this subject, but it's the simplicity. To never have judgments on yourself or on each other. That is probably one of the biggest hurdles.
That's so weird. Sorry. It just clicked off.
It's okay. We're meant to switch off.
Yeah, that is so strange. Wow. Gosh. Well, thank you for that. And I was just thinking how calm I was.
I think it's just called switching off. Perhaps the
Yeah,
masters are waiting.
that's fabulous. Yep, I think so.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And would you like to do a 5 minute meditation, seeing as we glitched there a little bit and we're back in the matrix?
You're just switching us. It's fine.
We're just switching. Exactly. I would love for you to do a meditation,
Okay.
please.
Relax your shoulders. Lower the breathing into the abdomen. When you breathe in, the abdomen will go out. When you breathe out, the abdomen will go in. The breath is very important. It works on its own. Like the heartbeat. Notice the breathing. Be present with the breathing. Be in silence, not silent. Silence. Connect. Connect to the being inside of us all. The awareness, consciousness, God, the source, universe. Connect. Deeply. More deeply. More deeply. Notice the breath. Notice the being. Inside. Connect. Silent. Connect to all beings. Share this inner love with all beings. Uh, Knowing who you are. Knowing who they are. Connect with divine love within. silence, 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 in being. For 1 minute. Slowly, slowly come back to duality. Slowly opening your eyes.
Thank you, Sue. Amazing as always.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, for being here. And may your day be infused with more and more compassion. It's already there. Sue, you have a wealth of information.
Your help.
And over and above all, remember, love is why we are here. Love you all. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sue.